Picture this. You live in a hut in the forest with your two parents who have convinced you that this is perfectly normal. In fact, you've never seen any other human beings but them. Your only friends are trees, rivers, and flowers, and you only eat what your parents are able to catch or grow themselves. Sounds like the beginning of a really bad movie, right? Well, that was my life until I was 8 years old. Before I continue, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell too, and your greatest dream will come true. It really works. Now, don't get me wrong, guys. I wasn't neglected or anything. My parents treated me like I was everything they'd ever hoped for. My mom was always hugging me and telling me how awesome and brilliant I was. And my dad? He was the best. He taught me how to survive on my own, and he told the most creative stories ever. I couldn't sleep if he wasn't around. This is why what they did next made absolutely no sense to me. Can you imagine your world being turned upside down and you had no idea why? One morning, I was sleeping very peacefully when my mom shook me awake.
It's time to go.
Where?
Away from here.
I didn't even know what away could possibly be. I imagined that if any other people existed, they all lived in little huts in the forest with their parents and separated from everyone else. I got up, got dressed, and looked around. My parents had packed the few things they had, and my dad was sitting there looking sad. "What's happening, Daddy? Where are we going?"
Away from here,
he replied. When it was time to leave, he picked me up and put me on his back so I wouldn't have to walk. The journey took about 2 hours, and then we reached a road. I saw a car whoosh by, and my heart nearly jumped out of my mouth. "What is that fast animal?" I squealed.
It's not an animal. It's a car.
My mom replied. As they walked along the road, more cars went by, and I saw people inside. This was so fascinating. Not just the cars, but to see other people.
Here, eat this. It will give you energy,
my mom said while putting a strange substance in my mouth. I fell asleep immediately. When I woke up, it was already night. I was on a couch in the living room. There was a woman staring directly at me. I jumped. "Who are you?" I asked.
I'm your Aunt Margaret. It's nice to meet you, Carla.
"You're not an aunt. You're a human. Where are my mom and dad?"
Not an aunt, an aunt. That's what we call a parent sister. I'm your mom's big sister. I'm sorry, but your parents had to leave. They left you with me.
When will they be back?
I don't know.
I started crying and crying. How could they do this to me? I'd never even been near another person, so why would they just leave me all alone in this house with a stranger?
There. It will be fine. I promise. Let me take you up to your room. You'll be sharing with Hannah, your cousin. She's 3 years old.
She reached out her hand to me and I held it. She took me upstairs to a very cute bedroom. Hannah was sleeping on one bed and she pointed to another bed, which was for me. I didn't know what else to do, so I just went to the bed and continued crying for the rest of the night. The next day, I woke up with Hannah's face above mine. She was staring at me.
Yay! You're up! Finally! Somebody to play with me! Do you want to see my dolls?
What are dolls? It turned out that I had a lot more to learn in this crazy world I didn't even know existed. After my sadness became more bearable, my aunt took me out and explained different things to me. Don't laugh, but my first trip to a supermarket was mind-blowing. We were walking through aisles and aisles of food, and I felt like I was in some kind of weird dream. "So you don't have to catch your own food?" I asked as I watched my aunt pick up some packages of meat. She laughed.
Of course not, honey. We just buy them.
Buy with what?
Money.
How do you get it?
Well, you work. I'm a secretary at a law firm. While I'm sure this is all gibberish to you, you'll understand someday.
Can I work?
Not yet. It's against the law. Plus, you have to go to school first.
What school? I wasn't prepared for her answer. A place where children had to sit all day, listening to adults? I wanted to run back home to look for my parents, but I didn't know the way. The next week, I started the 3rd grade. It was a Monday, and I will always remember this day as one of the most embarrassing days of my life. The teacher, Miss Sunny, made me stand in front of the class to introduce myself. Then she showed me to my seat. I was next to a boy named Todd who looked at me like I was some weird creature. Then Miss Sunny started handing out books, and she asked everyone to read one sentence. I held the book upside down, and I had no idea what I was supposed to do with it. My parents never taught me to read, and I couldn't understand all the symbols on the pages. I burst into tears, and everyone laughed.
Oh my gosh!
Miss Sunny gasped.
You can't read, can you?
I couldn't understand because I didn't know what that meant. Anyway, I spent the rest of the year in remedial classes with a nice man named Mr. Jameson. He taught me how to read, count, color, and everything else a child my age was supposed to do. By the end of the year, I was ready to join the kids in my grade again. I didn't enjoy that, obviously. Can you imagine having nothing to do all day and just enjoying your simple life in the trees and then being forced to sit in a box for 7 hours a day? I didn't understand why this was happening to me. My life wasn't getting any easier either. I felt sad every single day because I wondered when my parents were finally coming back for me. I'd ask my aunt, but she seemed just as clueless.
Stop worrying, darling. Just take it one day at a time. You will see them again someday.
Years passed and my parents never showed up. They never sent letters, called, or anything. The only thing that made me really happy was food. The first time I tasted ice cream, it felt like magic. I mean, we didn't even have a fridge in our hut in the forest, so the concept of something being frozen was totally new to me. I wanted more and more, so I ate, and it made me feel better. I loved anything with cheese on it, and I felt like whoever invented it should be made a saint. I loved snacking too. Long story short, my mouth was always moving because there was something in it.
You eat too much,
Hannah said to me one day while we were watching a movie. We were both teenagers then. Food is life. Leave me alone, I replied, and that was that. Well, you know what happened, right? I became overweight, and although I didn't care too much, I was teased at school because of it. I made it through elementary and middle school unscarred, but high school was a total nightmare. I decided to join some clubs instead of focusing on things that made me sad. My favorite was the photography club. I made a really good friend there. His name was Landon, and we had a few things in common. He lived with an uncle because his mom was in prison and his dad disappeared when he was born. Why don't you look for him? I asked him once.
Well, he's just a deadbeat dad. I'm pretty sure he's nearby, but if I find him, it won't change anything.
I have deadbeat parents, so I understand.
Have you ever tried to find them?
No, the thought never crossed my mind. Where do I even start?
I have an idea.
He smiled. Since I was too shy to go to any news stations, his bright idea was to make a video, share it, and try to make it go viral so that people could help me find them. We set up the camera in the photography room, and I tried my best to explain the situation. I described my parents just the way I remembered them and begged anyone who had any information to contact me as soon as possible. We shared the video and asked our other friends to do the same thing, but it was a flop. It got a few likes, hearts, and 27 shares. After a month, we gave up. Years passed and Landon and I were doing our Bachelor of Fine Arts in photography in Paris. You know how they say that everything falls into place when you're least expecting it? That's sort of what happened. We were in one of our most interesting classes watching a documentary on modern photographers around the world. We saw amazing pieces from Japan, Ireland, Tanzania, and even the South Pacific. Then we reached Russia. This particular photographer's theme was restaurants, and he took many pictures of people just sitting and eating.
That's so lame. Their mouths are filled with food. They look ridiculous.
Landon said. I started laughing, and then suddenly I froze. I saw two people who looked exactly like my parents sitting with a little girl at a cozy-looking cafe. Can you ask the professor to freeze that picture? I want to look at it again, I told Landon. I stared at the picture for 5 minutes.
Carla, are you okay?
No. I think those are my parents. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's them. What were they doing in Russia? I asked my professor for that photographer's name, and I tried to contact them. After making countless calls and sending many emails, I finally received a reply. He told me he didn't remember the exact address of the place he took the picture, but he gave me the name of the town. I had been working really hard to pay for my tuition, and I had some money saved up. It was a risky decision, but I spent half of the money on a plane ticket. I was off to find my parents. It felt like the third grade all over again because I couldn't read anything in that place. All the letters looked like funny symbols, and I had no idea what on earth anyone was saying. Luckily, the town wasn't far from the airport, and I just had to show the address to a taxi driver. When we got there, I got out of the car and walked around. Although I had printed the picture, who could I show it to and how would I explain my situation? I wasn't sure, but I had to try. I felt like I was walking in circles, then I finally reached the cafe from the picture. I hope this is it and not a replica, I thought. I went inside and showed the picture to the waitress. They looked at me like I was weird. Then, finally, a short, chubby man came to help.
Hi, I am the owner and I speak English. What do you want?
He said, Do you know the people in this picture?
Well, I don't know them very well, but they come here every Tuesday. Luckily, it's Monday today, so you can try coming back tomorrow. Who are you? An investigator? Are they in trouble?
No, I'll see you tomorrow, I said and left. I went to a little bed and breakfast, showered, changed, and slept. The next day, I went to the cafe before daybreak. It wasn't even open yet, but I was determined to see my parents whenever they came. At about 11 o'clock, it finally happened. They walked in smiling, with the same little girl from the picture, but she looked a little bit older. I approached them immediately. Mom? Dad? My parents looked like they had seen a ghost.
How did you find us?
Said my mom. Wow, nice to see you too. That isn't important. What I want to know is why you abandoned me. My dad started crying and the little girl looked confused.
I'm so sorry, Carla, honey. Let's sit down so we can talk about this.
We sat down and the little chubby man I met the day before took our order. He looked very interested in what was going on.
It's not your father's fault. I was tired of living in the forest and I wanted a fresh start. I convinced your father to move away with me. We toured Europe for a while, and then we settled in Russia and had another child. This is Anessa, your sister.
Why couldn't you take me with you?
The future was too uncertain. You would have been safer with my sister.
Why didn't you call, send letters, let me know you were alive and that you hadn't forgotten all about me?
We felt it was best this way. Weren't you safe? Weren't you cared for?
My dad sat there looking sad and didn't say anything. I was heartbroken that they didn't understand how their disappearance had hurt me so much. I left the cafe without saying another word to them, and I flew back to Paris that evening. I called my aunt as soon as I got back to tell her everything that happened.
Wow, I can't believe you found them. When they left you with me, they told me it was only going to be a week, that they were going to look for regular jobs so that you could have a normal life. When I realized that they weren't coming back, I decided to take care of you like you were my own, and to not make a big deal.
Although I was heartbroken, I was thankful for an aunt like her. Maybe one day I will meet my little sister again, and maybe my parents will come to their senses. Who knows? But I know what you're thinking, and you're right. My parents suck. But for now, I'm ready to move on with my life.